Hi, everybody. This is Peter Gordon from New York Financial Organizers, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing David Cutner of Lamson and Cutner PC. They are an elder law firm and a trust and estates firm, and we're going to talk today about the importance of having an estate plan. So welcome, David. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Good to see you, Peter. Thanks for doing this interview.
Sure. So as we know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. This is quite a
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
kind of turning our lives upside down. So I'm curious if you could tell me what's happening with your law practice today.
Well, I'm happy to say, as far as the practice goes, we're pretty fortunate. We've been very busy. I think a lot of people, excuse me, have been putting off doing their wills, their powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, and so on. And the coronavirus has sort of spurred them to take action. So we've been doing wills and doing all of these documents. And fortunately, we were able to do them online in a video conference like we're doing today. So nobody has to leave their home. We can have wills signed, powers of attorney, and so on.
Yeah, no, that's great. The technology is wonderful. We're experiencing the same thing of the benefit of working virtually before the lockdown, and are having the benefit of that. So, David, do you advise people to have a will?
Generally, we do. I think most people should have a will. Some cases, I think it's an unnecessary expense, but generally, yes. Particularly if it's a young family, definitely they should have wills. But most people should. A couple of things I could say about wills that I think we need to pay attention to. One is a will is just a piece of paper until a court validates it. It's not self-enforceable. You have to file a probate petition. There's family members have to be notified. Typically, there's a hearing. This all takes time and it costs money. So that's probate. The other thing that's important to bear in mind is the will controls only those assets that are in your individual name when you die. So the probate assets may be something different than what you think of as your total estate or your total assets.
Good. And you mentioned probate, and a lot of people think that it's a good idea to avoid probate. And is that true? And if so, why?
Well, a lot of people say that, and I guess I would add my voice to that chorus. The thing about probate is it's a judicial proceeding. You're in court. It takes time. You're dealing with a bureaucracy. You're dealing with clerks and judges. Nothing ever happens when you think it's going to. You're spending money on legal fees. You may be confronted with objections or a will contest from a disgruntled family member. In any event, it's going to take time and it's going to cost you money. And there are better alternatives. So if you have a good estate plan, it's not to say that you shouldn't have a will, but in most cases, we hope we're not going to have to probate it.
So you said there are good alternatives. What are some alternatives?
Well, there's some that we don't typically think of as estate planning. One example would be jointly owned property. If you own your house, for example, jointly with your wife, with right of survivorship, if you die, the house belongs to your wife. Even if you say something different in your will, the deed controls. And similarly, if you have a joint bank account and one of the owners dies, the account belongs to the other owner automatically. It's not a probate asset. We also have beneficiary designations. For example, if you have an IRA, you've probably named somebody as the beneficiary to receive that account when you die. So that beneficiary designation would control not what you might say in your will if you said something different. So we have all of these sort of non-probate assets. And then, of course, we have trusts. And trusts are also non-probate. And in my view, really the best way of doing estate planning.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I'll use as a personal example my father-in-law, who did not have a trust, but he did not have a great deal of assets. You know, his main assets were his IRA, as well as his own investment accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And he made my wife and my brother-in-law the beneficiaries, and that made life very easy. But he didn't own real estate, and it wasn't complicated. And I know a lot of my clients have trusts, and I always refer them to estate attorneys. And could you tell us how trusts work and why a client would want one?
Sure. You know, to begin with, I think a lot of people um, don't look at trusts or don't want a trust because up front it's more work. You know, a will is a document. You do your will, you sign it, you're done. A trust is a bigger project. It starts with a trust agreement between you and whoever you're naming as trustee to carry out the terms of the trust, but it doesn't end there. You have to fund that trust. You have to transfer money and property into it. If it's just a document, it's completely meaningless. It's only effective if it actually owns assets. So deeds are required if the trust is going to own real property. Transfers of money and securities are necessary. We have to open accounts. So there's a lot more work and planning that goes into a trust, but the results are great. I mean, the experience we've had in our law firm with trusts is really, they're so effective and so useful to clients. And you avoid all of the issues of probate. There's no court proceeding. It's totally private. It's very efficient when it comes to time to distribute assets. And you can also plan for all kinds of contingencies that you cannot do with jointly owned property or beneficiary designations. You can deal with things like what happens if somebody predeceases me? What happens if a child who's of a tender age is going to inherit a lot of money? There are all kinds of issues like that that we can very effectively deal with in a trust. In addition, depending what someone's goals are, we can design that trust so it is protective of the assets so that creditors cannot access the assets in that trust. And similarly, we can facilitate eligibility for government programs like Medicaid. So if someone has a concern about long-term care, we may want to put money into a trust so that now the money doesn't belong to that person anymore. It belongs to the trust. Therefore, that person may be able to become eligible for government benefits. So there's all kinds of things that we can adapt the trust to. It really is a wonderful solution in so many ways. It's not for everyone. Somebody who has only a modest amount of money, it may not be worth the time and expense of
Like my father-in-law.
Creating a trust, but in many situations, it really would be the very best solution.
Right. It sounds like that's a whole nother interview unto itself.
Well, probably. I do a continuing education course on trusts, and we usually spend an hour or more talking about it. And even then, it's still at a fairly basic level. So.
No, but what it comes down to, it makes the process of finalizing a estate once somebody passes away so much simpler. So the upfront work that you go into creating the trust when the person is alive will be a gift to the family when the time comes when they happen to pass.
Absolutely. Even if it were the simplest probate, the trust is still by far simpler and it just avoids so many problems. I
And
think
saves on time and money.
absolutely.
Well, David, thank you very much. This has been incredibly informative. If you could give us your email address and your website, and then we'll repeat it again at the end on the last screen of the video.
Well, sure. I mean, if anybody would like to be in touch with us, my email address is dcutner, C-U-T-N-E-R, at Lamson, Lamson dash Cutner.com. And our website is simply Cutner.com, Cutner.com. There's a lot of information, by the way, on our
Took
website.
the words out of my mouth. It's an excellent website, full of very useful educational information and videos.
Yes, we've tried to make it very educational, and we spend a lot of time putting information up there. We want it to be informative, and we like clients to make informed decisions. So that's part of our plan and our program.
Right. Okay, David, thank you so much. That was great. I really appreciate it. And I'll see everybody at my next interview. Take care now.
Great. You too, Peter. Thank you. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.